Hi, thank you for joining us. Today we have Julio Almaza, who has been through a lot in his life. Now he's featured in magazines, he has his own podcast, he has his own show that is playing on Prime and all streaming media. But life was not always that glamorous. He grew up in a very difficult situation and it was difficult. By the time he was 11, he had to find another family, and he found that by joining a local gang in Chicago where he was born. From there, life took him through so many twists and turns. He ended up serving many years across multiple prisons, including a prison in Mexico. Julio today helps hundreds, if not thousands, of people across many platforms. So today he's going to share some of his journey. Hello, Julio.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. And it's really a pleasure that you're here and we can share with our viewers and our listeners about your journey and what you do with the community. You not only help people here in Arizona, but across many states. And now you run an organization, a nonprofit organization, Wrong to Strong. And could you tell us a little bit about the mission of the organization?
Hi, thank you for having me. When I first started Wrong to Strong, it wasn't what it is now. I had visioned something, I guess we could say, way easier. Actually, Wrong to Strong started as a fitness therapeutic kind of thing that I was doing with people that were getting released from jail, vets and stuff like that when I first got out. But as I started visiting prison on a more daily schedule, it started to change. I started to realize that I needed to help people that have been through the stuff that I have been through. I understood them. I spoke their language, and so it took me 7 years to develop a program that is it's what I teach now. Um, and it has to do with a lot of things like life skills, emotional maturity, decisions, a lot of things that I believe that kids that grow up in different neighborhoods just don't get taught at home. So it's my mission is, I guess you could say, to retrain men and women and kids.
And you help them because, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you were young, you went through so much that you wish you would have had guidance, right?
Yeah. You know, I suffered a lot from the age of 4 to 10. A lot of abuse at home, rape, drowning, torture, beatings. It was bad, and it completely stripped me away from my identity, from my just any kind of pride that I had. So when I hit the streets, the gangs were waiting to give me an identity, to give me a nickname, to give me a mission, a plan, and I fell victim to it. I really thought that I had found a family, and I wish I would have had someone like a big brother or mentor that would have told me, no, Julio, let's do this instead. Because even as a kid, I tried to be a good kid. I played sports. I would sign my own self up to basketball and stuff like that, but there was never no parents around for me to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So, my goal is to just, be there for these people, like actually be there. Like yesterday when I was there for this Christmas party for the juveniles yesterday, we're talking about 40, 50 kids. Nobody went to go see them. I was the only one there.
And it was open for parents
Yeah, it was
to.
open for the parents to go, and there was me, and then there was another organization there called Hannah. Shout out to them for the what they did yesterday. Uh, but it's sad to see that like nobody nobody's up for that. So I take it upon myself. It's a huge responsibility, but I think I'm strong enough to carry it.
And I think you have been through so much. You've been through the stage where you wanted the structure and then you found it, and now full circle, you're able to give it back to the community. And that's it's priceless. It really is. And the kids need that. Um, when you were in Chicago and you started paying attention to the neighborhood and to the community, um, what can you share? Because I'm hoping to reach out to the viewers who maybe are parents and also to the young people who might be seeking refuge. What was that you received from the gang community that made you feel welcome and part of their family?
I mean, they gave me everything that I was searching for. They gave me a nickname. They gave me a ward. They gave me a brotherhood. They gave me like a big brother because the guys that were older than us.
And was it just men or were women part of the gang as
No, there was at least in Chicago, there's a lot of women that are part of the gangs, and they're they're as active as the men also. So like they were a big part of my life. I don't know if I told you, I had a lot of women boss in my life when I was working for the cartel and stuff like that. So like it was, you know, I see all these kids now, and it's the number one thing is that they don't know what love is. And that's what I didn't know either.
yeah.
I didn't come to find love or know what love was until I was in my late 40s already. So to see the kids like yesterday when they came out running like little kids. And these are 14, 15-year-old kids that have to go do a grown man's sentence because they're gonna go do 20 years, 15 years, all
Yes,
this
sir.
from murders.
Yeah.
And that's because they had the wrong mentor, the wrong big brother. Um, I don't know. I'm really committed to this work. It makes me emotional because I feel like they take advantage of them, like they took advantage of me.
And I see that often because I represent juveniles charged as adults. And most of the time, they're the major crimes. They're the major crimes. And it is not that they were recruited to commit a murder or anything like that, but a life will take them through a path, whether they're buying or selling or transporting drugs. Sometimes a lot of weapons now. A lot of kids are being recruited for trafficking weapons. And so one thing leads to another, and then sometimes things go wrong. Things go wrong. Um, when you started traveling between the United States and Mexico, you were still a young man, right?
I was 16 years old. I had just turned 16.
And what did it feel to have such a responsibility to manage a cargo or money? Is that something that gave you a false sense of empowerment?
Well, yeah, I even say it on the TV show. I thought I had found like my calling. I thought I felt like a man.
Yeah.
I I found my job, and it didn't help that I was good at it, so it got me more in trouble. Um,
And you went through a lot once you got caught. And was it the seventh trip?
yeah, on the seventh trip, I got arrested at a checkpoint by the Mexican military.
And your time in that Mexican prison was horrific.
Yeah, it was. I tell people, even even my time as a kid, the prison was worse than that. Like, and it wasn't so much because like as a kid I got raped and all that bad stuff, but like me having to watch other people suffer so much really affected me.
That's dramatic.
And it was on daily basis. So like, and I tell people, and at the end when I messed up and I got I beat up the wrong person in there and they moved me out and I owed money and I felt like a dead man walking every day. There wasn't one day that I didn't wake up and I was like, huh, I wonder if I'm gonna make it today. Because I had already by then they had already stabbed me 5 times.
Yeah, I learned that about your journey, that you have been shot at, you've been stabbed, you were hit, and then you also watch that every day. And once you were transferred to a US prison, did you see violence there as well?
Yes, but it's more controlled. Um, you know when it's gonna happen, so it's more you kind of move around from it. In Mexico, it was just free for all, so it was very different. But the prisons here in America are just as violent as over there. Um, I think what saves it over there in Mexico is that everybody has weapons. It's very different.
Inside the prison.
Yeah, inside the prison. I mean, they even have guns in there. So over here, it's very different because all the violence comes from the gangs and who runs the prison and all that stuff. So, but they're very dangerous. I tell people if you've been to an American prison, it doesn't matter. It's a month, 2 months, 3 months. You don't come out the same person no more. You don't. I don't care what anybody says.
I agree. No, I agree. I see it in my clients that they go, whether it's a year or 10 years. And a lot of my clients stay in touch, but when they come out, they're different. They have experienced so much.
I have to believe that everything that I went through as a kid, the torture, the beatings, everything helped me survive everything that I survived in Mexico in the prison. It's just everything. I mean, I was in fifth grade when my best friend got shot, killed in front of me, died in my arms. Watched him like take his last breath. So all those scars se fueron acumulando, like they started,
Building up.
building up, and by the time I reached prison, I was already kind of numb to a lot of stuff.
Sometimes parents worry about their kids, regardless if they're juveniles or adults. I think the parents are always concerned about their kids going to prison, or friends or loved ones, girlfriends, wives. Um, does everybody who go into a US prison, do they have to join some kind of group or some kind of gang, or are there people who are able to stay afloat without joining a group?
Technically, you have to join a group.
Oh,
I love when people say, "Oh, you don't have to." Okay, just give it a little bit of time, and you'll see how the papers change. And it's really the level of security where you're able to do that. We're talking about if you go to a camp, uh, you could probably get away with it because everybody there doesn't care. They're going home in 6 months, 3 months, whatever. You go to a minimum security, they start getting a little bit more political, checking paperwork. You have 90 days to submit your paperwork. You got this, you got that. Max, that's it. No snitches, no sex offenders. It's completely, they have their own laws
yes.
and they're very, very thorough on checking everything. They call people outside. So, like, a lot of people think, and I want to say this just because a lot of people try to sneak through the cracks if they have bad paperwork or bad crimes and stuff like that. And it's the worst decision you can make.
Okay, let's talk about that because as an attorney, I get those calls all the time
Hmm.
because when clients are in a jail and here in Arizona, typically they have them throw everything out. So when they get to the prison, they call me desperate for copies of their police reports. And is it true that people need to have paper, something that shows their charges and what happened?
Yeah.
So, what happens if there is somebody who may have charges that the groups, the gangs might not approve of?
Well, you already know what you have to do. You have to lock it up. You have to go to protective custody because this is the thing. You're going to get there and they're going to give you a little bit of time to produce the paperwork. And the jails usually make you throw all your stuff away because they don't want to deal with the issue.
Yeah.
But legally, you're able to take your legal paperwork with you everywhere. You take that folder with you. I walked around with my paperwork all the way until I got to prison.
That is not the case here in Arizona because I get those calls and they're frantic calls. They're frantic. They have just a week and sometimes the mail takes much longer.
Yeah.
So,
You know, my biggest advice I always tell people, especially, as you have your lawyer fighting your case, as soon as you get all your paperwork in, you mail one copy to you mail one copy home if you have a home, but you always have them standby, because if you're a criminal and you're gonna go do time, you're gonna need that's your driver's license in there.
I see. Yeah.
That's your ID to prove to everyone else that you're not what they think. um And you have to be careful too. That right now, and times are different right now. There's so many undercovers. There's so
By
many.
the prison?
Yeah, there's so many people that are dirty, but they pretend not to be dirty, and it's funny because you don't know who's who, and it's because the staff is being involved, and just too much going on. When I first got to federal prison, there was 63 guys there of my organization.
That's a lot.
Uh-huh. And when I got there, I was like, man, I don't want to be on count. That means that you don't want to be part of the politics, part of the fights, all that stuff. And they're like, JC, you can't do that. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I just don't want to do this no more. And they could have hurt me.
Yeah.
But things turned out different for me. But there's no way around it. If you're gonna do time, you're gonna have to sit with a race or a gang.
And that's tough for a lot of people who have never been exposed to on the street
Yeah.
to groups or gangs. So, it's just people have to do what they can to serve their time and get out.
There's a gang in Texas that has been very it grew so fast because it took all the guys that were not in gangs and needed protection, and they grew so big. They call it Tango Blast. They're out of Texas, and it's all Solanos. That's what they call themselves. They're not part of they're only there. They're only part of the gang while they're in prison. Once they get out, that's it. But it eventually turned into a gang.
But that's not the case. It always is, right? Usually the gangs are outside and inside. But what happens, because when I was a teacher, and I taught middle school for 8 years, unfortunately, a lot of students who were in the gangs already, and they followed the dress code, they followed everything, and I left teaching so long ago, and about 10 years ago, I remember getting a message through Facebook Messenger from an old student who was struggling to leave a gang.
Mhm.
I don't know what it takes, but is it possible? Well, you are living proof. You are living proof. You were part of the Chicago gang and then the Mexican cartel. Do you think that is possible for other people to be able to break free?
It's possible. You just gotta do things right, though. It's why I do what I do. I work with families sometimes, to guide them because sometimes you have to remove the kid from the area. You have to remove the kid. We had a family I was working with where we sent the kid to go live with his aunt in Tucson for a little bit. And it's so funny. It was such a dramatic change in his grades, everything. And it was just from that little move. And it's because sometimes kids just want to be part of something. Like it's not necessarily like they're bad or anything, but they just want to be part of something. And I mean, gangs give it to. I mean, let's be honest. If your parents are not around, gangs are gonna step in. But it is possible to leave. You just gotta do it right. You gotta do it right. There's certain ways to do it. You can't be disrespectful in their face and then expect for everything to be okay
Yeah.
because they're still a gang.
I see a lot of my clients who struggle with criminal charges and they're young, but their parents were not able to watch them because they were working sometimes two jobs. So, and it's so difficult, especially for immigrant families who are trying to pay bills and the jobs that they have are not high paying positions. And so they have to maybe do a full time during the day and then another part time job in the evening. Those kids are the ones that need the guidance, that need the help. And sometimes parents want to help them, want to guide them, but just coming home at night when the kids are already gone on the streets is very hard. What what word of advice do you have for those parents?
You know, I feel for those parents because one, they don't understand the culture. You know what I mean? It's a very different culture to Mexico. And I could say that because I grew up on both sides. So, American culture is very different. We promote gangs on TV, on movies, everything.
Yeah.
And music. So our kids are growing up thinking that it's cool, and obviously if you're not there to watch them, they're gonna make the decisions that they make. And parents like that, my only advice I could give them is I know that you have to work a lot. My mom did it. My grandparents did it. But one thing that my grandparents did is that they made sure that Saturday and Sunday they spent it with me. And I have to believe that just because I spent those days with them, I didn't get into more trouble that I probably would have if I would have been out there on the weekends. Like they always made sure I spent after my grandparents, like after I grew up and I left my grandparents' house is where I just went straight. Like dumb.
That was your lifeline, your
Mm.
grandparents.
They moved out here. I
Yeah,
ended up moving out here, and once they left, that was it for me.
I'm sorry. Yeah. And now you've translated everything into your powerhouse because you do so many things. Um, you run a podcast, you run a business, you run Wrong to Strong, and you also volunteer. You do a lot of volunteer work. Tell us about your visits to the men and women's prisons here in Arizona.
Um, I spend more time in prison now than I did when I was in prison. Uh, I volunteer a lot, on daily basis actually. Today I go to Perryville. On Wednesdays I go to the women's prison. On Tuesdays I go to the juvenile, and on Fridays I go to the men's prison. I don't know. I just I wish someone would have fought for me. So that's why like I feel so a responsibility of going there and more than anything, not being a motivational speaker, like actually teaching them like everything I've learned. Um, because I believe that if it was given to me for free, why wouldn't I give it to the next person for free for them to be able to experience the joy in the life that I'm living, because really it's not the material stuff, it's like the man that I'm starting to become, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And your journey has been an evolution because when you served your last term, you still had
Mhm.
changes to go through.
Like today at 1:30, I'm gonna speak to all of DOC, and at first they were like, "Yeah, share your story," and I was like, "You guys know my story. Like, I'm gonna share the story that you guys gave me a chance 7 years ago to walk back into the prison, and trusted me enough to be able to teach, because when I go there now, they provide a classroom, they give me whatever I need."
Mhm.
Um, Yesterday I took a visitor with me to the juvenile prison, and when we walked in, they just let us go in because the guards always say, "Oh, JC's VIP." Um, and he's like, "Dude, I've never seen nothing like this." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "I've never seen the guards just open the gate and just let you like walk around, roam around." And I was like, "That's how much they trust me."
You earned that though.
Yes.
You earned that. Because it's not common to have somebody with felony convictions to even be allowed in there to visit loved ones. So that's something that you should be very proud.
No, I take it very serious, and I'm just, I thank God every day that I'm able to share, like my pain was able to turn into a classroom. I was able to turn like the biggest mistake of my life into the greatest classroom. I don't know.
And you're a man of faith.
Yes. Yes.
That didn't come easily though.
No. And I became a man of faith November 6th, 2021 at midnight. I didn't realize how bad of a person I was. And I mean
Why do
that,
you say that?
and I mean that like, because I was a liar. I was a cheater. Uh, I was a womanizer. I was very selfish. Um, I was a lot of things. And I tell people I didn't mean to be that way. It's just that my whole life I had to make sure Julio was okay.
You had to
I
survive.
had to survive. Nobody was checking my temperature. Nobody was making sure I was safe. No, like I had to survive. So it made me very selfish. Um, to the point where I wasn't a good dad to some of my kids. A lot of stuff. But it's all coming back together now, and I have a really good relationship with my son, my daughters. They see the difference in their dad now. I was very, very harsh. I was very muy fuerte before. I was very hard on my girls. I was very hard on my girls, but like I tell everybody, I did good because out of all of them, only one has a baby. Las dejé asustadas.
I think that a lot of us who have gone through hardships in life, we don't want our kids to go through the same. So we try to tell them like if you go this way, this could go wrong. But I hear it. I think I'm guilty of that sometimes, of being a little bit too structured, too hard, right? Yeah. Yeah. And now when you speak with people and in your organization, when people come to ask you for guidance and help, do you think that people of faith have a stronger path to establishing themselves after incarceration?
When I got out in 2017 after surviving some of the most dangerous prisons, and just everything I survived, I thought I had made it. Like I was like, I made it. Now all I have to do is get my life together and I'll be fine. And I didn't realize that I was a ticking time bomb because of all the pain that I was carrying around. And it wasn't to the day that I found faith, that I found God, that I got on my knees for the first time. I call it doble rodilla because I had never got on my knees. I was so prideful. I was so strong. Um, that helped me let go of a lot of pain that I had carried around for a long time. Um, being able to understand that something greater than me loved me and created me for a purpose, like, just made me like, I went into like a deep, I almost went to school to become a pastor. I signed up for school, everything, but it wasn't my calling. I felt like God told me, no, 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 no. I need you to be just who you are,
Yeah.
not someone else.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. It's just, but I know it's something that's gonna continue for the rest of my life, because I see how much I've improved even in my vocabulary. Because before it was F this, F that. It's the only way I spoke. I told people I was a criminal and a gangster full time. I wasn't part time. I spoke and acted like one everything. So this is the new version of me. The version I was supposed to be,
Yeah.
not the one that the world tried to convince me I needed to be.
But it's so hard, especially for men, to ask for help. Latino men, especially, have a hard time experiencing or outwardly expressing sadness, depression, anxiety. Those are the clients that have the hardest times. And I feel that a lot of the clients who have family that tell them what to do, they don't feel free to tell about what they're going through.
Well, it's like this, and I tell everybody, you get out of prison and the first thing your family tells you is, okay, this is the last time, all right? Don't do it no more. And like sometimes you don't realize is that you're not doing this on purpose.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes, like I said, sometimes family could be more of a hinder than help. Because it comes a point too where you have to put on your big boy pants. Like, enough is enough. Um, even me wearing pants now is something different, because I always wore shorts. Always wore shorts. And I remember when I first started walking in my faith, I started going to school, and the lady in front was like, "Oh, you look so nice dressed up like that." And I was like, "I don't like this." And then I went to Florida to one of the prisons, and one of the ladies was like, "You got some grown man pants in your car?"
Oh,
And I said, "What?" And I got so mad.
yeah.
But from that day on, I said, "Okay, I need to start dressing." I guess you could say, I'm not saying age appropriate, but business appropriate for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So even that small little thing has evolved in me too.
Figuratively and physically, you had to grow into the grown man pants. My situation obviously is different than yours, but in my life, I had to make decisions at some point where I had to cut some family off. And I had to cut family off because it was the best that I felt for me and for the rest of my life, that there were certain family members that could no longer be part of my life. Have you seen that people do that in order to better themselves, break the cycle, have sobriety?
My family used to be, and I'm talking about the Almanzas, my dad's side of the family used to be very, very tight, tight, tight. 14 uncles, 14 aunts, a lot of grandchildren, a lot of us. We were really close. All the grandchildren were really close. They they started fighting. They started bickering about money, about this, and I had to cut family off because I don't like when family tells me, "Oh, you can't talk to your tia because if you talk to her, I'm gonna be mad at you."
Oh, yeah.
And I don't play that. Like, if you have something to say to her, you go say it to her. Don't tell me. I don't like gossip. I don't like none of that stuff. So I've had to cut some of my I call my toxic some of my toxic family off just because I've gotten to the point where I love my peace and my joy so much that I protect it. I have boundaries, and I even have a boundary when I pick up clients where they can't keep calling me over and over again
100%.
or texting me. I mean, you probably go through this too. Like,
Yeah.
I said, hey, I'll call you back when I get a moment. It might be a day, but I'll call you back. Don't keep texting me.
Yeah.
You know,
And sometimes people don't appreciate boundaries.
well, it's because they don't have none.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes you have to say yours to be able to teach them because obviously they haven't had none.
And so let's circle back to your organization, Wrong to Strong, where families sometimes feel that their loved one who's incarcerated keeps pushing,
Mhm.
keeps pushing for money, for multiple things. Sometimes they want to buy a TV or shoes or specific things. And people are struggling on the outside because maybe they paid the bond, maybe they paid an attorney. And so money is a constant. Are you able to help those families whose boundaries are being pushed by their loved one who is detained?
I the number one thing is I tell people I coach the families so the person inside doesn't take advantage of them
Does
because
that happen?
it does. It does more often than what people realize. Why? Because they're scared. They're in survival mode now. It's very, very things change, and sometimes the parents they go into survival mode too, and they start panicking, and everything turns emotional.
It does.
Money, letters. And then the thing is that then the inmate starts saying, hey, so I need this done. I need this done. I need this done. And you have your mom bring over here to your friend's house.
Yeah.
And like, no, like it makes me sad because I did 17 years by myself. I didn't have, I received 2 letters in 17 years. Yeah, I had my 2 sisters that were there here and there, God bless their soul, but they were dealing with the trauma that they would needed to deal with, like trauma I was dealing with.
Yeah.
So like I don't, I don't, I don't blame them for nothing, but like I feel for the families that are doing so much and it's never enough for the guy or the woman or the kid that's in there because it turns emotional. So what I help families do is one, a game plan. How long is he gonna be in? What are we looking at? Like fun wise. Because everything has to be strategic from mail to visit. Visits are check-ins to see how he's doing physically, mentally.
Yeah.
Um, but if you don't know that you're going there to do that as a plan, then you're just there as emotional support. And really that's not what they need.
And sometimes families have to take off work to do the visits. They have to travel. Sometimes they have to go to another city, drive a few hours. I see it takes a toll on families who are helping and waiting. We're going to put your contact information in the comments so people can reach out to you because I think the work that you're doing is very powerful and important where the the game is not over. The fact that somebody got sentenced is not over. The journey just transforms itself into a different way.
I look at it as like look at it as being in a cocoon. So if you're gonna go in those 5 years, going in with a plan and like a mentor, a coach, whatever people will call it nowadays, a guy. I call myself a guide. You go into the cocoon, you're coming out a butterfly
Yeah.
because you're preparing for it. But if you just go in to waste time, watch TV, hang out, smoke on the yard, and tell jokes, then you're gonna come out the same person you went in, probably worse, because you pick up a lot of criminal behaviors while you're there. So it's I tell people, you could turn your greatest mistake into the greatest school.
And you learned that the hard way. You didn't have a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I plan too much.
Yes, you do. But there's great power in that. Yes. Well, we're very grateful for you being here and sharing your knowledge. And I think so many families and people who are about to serve time or already serving could benefit from your guidance. So thank you for your work.
Thank you for having me. Just thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you. Thank you.